edition, and I am Victoria Anole. Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you, any parts of the world you're watching us. This is Front Line of New Frontiers Television. Of course, it's the last Wednesday in the month of January 2026, and it's day 28 in January. We want to say thank God for life and thank God for the month of January. It's wrapping up already. So we are saying that by Sunday it will be February 1 already. That means 1 month is gone in there.
1 month is actually gone. Looking at the fact that it's 28th, the 28th day in the month of January, and 1/12 already. For those people that have not started implementing and working towards the goal that they've actually set for the year 2026. Don't forget that January is rounding up gradually. Just 3 days to the end of January, and before going to in February, and before you open your eyes, you realize that we've actually used a quarter in the year 2026. So please try as much as possible to take good care of yourself. That is very paramount. And also, those goals that you've actually set, look at those goals that are actually realistic. They are short-term, long-term goals, and look at the ones that you can actually fulfill. Don't forget that it's actually a step at a time, but don't procrastinate. Try as much as possible to achieve something, even if it's going to be a thing in a month, something tangible in a month. Try as much as possible to do that.
Yeah, that's very key, because if you are still lazing around, hoping that the year is still very fresh or new, before you know it, December has come already, and you just realize that you've not ticked all of the boxes, all of the things that you've put in those boxes at the end of the day. So just as you mentioned, those set unrealistic goals. Sometimes you want to do things huge, massive, fine. Those are good. But in as much as you can take a step at a time. I was listening to a radio program this morning where the woman was talking about we don't just grow up when we were born. There is a stage in everything. There is a stage of infancy, there's a stage of adulthood, and all of that. So your wins should be celebrated bit by bit. Don't just jump that you want to just be great one day. Celebrate your little wins and start growing. Move a step after the other.
Yes, it is very, very important, and that's our motivation. This morning, we have a lot of things signed up for you this morning, starting with our trends. Then we'll move to the media part of this segment to check the headlines and national dailies, and we'll take news from our news center by 9 o'clock. And after we are going to have a conversation with the MMU director, we want to look at what you have in their plan for 2026 for the Missionary Union of the Nigeria Baptist Convention. What churches, what Baptist churches you should be expecting from the MMU. So trust me, you don't want to miss out of that conversation for this morning. But before that, let us take a quick break, and after which front I will continue with our trends. Please stay with us. on that break, and of course, it's the frontline on Influencers Television. We'll be starting with our trends this morning, and there's a development concerning some health bills that was actually transmitted yesterday. The headline saying that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu transmits 24 health bills to the Senate, and the Senate has received 24 health sector bills from the President for legislative consideration in line with the Section 58, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the bills were conveyed in a letter addressed to the Senate and read during plenary by the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Tinubu had explained that the proposed legislation followed a comprehensive review of existing health sector laws carried out by the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice in collaboration with the Minister of Health and Social Welfare, and subsequently approved by the Federal Executive Council. And according to the President, the bills are aimed at streamlining governance structures across health institutions by reducing overbloated board memberships with a view to improving efficiency, effectiveness, and service delivery within the sector. He also noted that the proposed legislation would cover a wide range of health institutions and regulatory bodies, including tertiary and teaching hospitals, specialty hospitals, professional councils, and regulatory agencies. You would not forget the fact that we've been having issues concerning the health sector, and one of the reasons why we keep having brain drain in the health sector is the fact that there are some things that the federal government is yet to implement, apart from the remuneration, apart from the allowances, the salaries. The health sector is actually complaining about a lot of things, and you also forget that don't forget that the president had mentioned that the health sector is going to be revamped soon, and I recall that it was last year that the president mentioned that in due time people that have actually traveled abroad will come back to the country, and I think this is one of the reasons why the president is actually has actually passed these 24 health bills to the Senate for approval.
Yeah, the amendment bills transmitted to the Senate are those relating to national hospitals for women and children, federal medical centers, National Specialty Hospitals Management Board, Orthopedic Hospital Management Board, National Eye Center, National Ear Care Center, Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria, Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, that is NAFDAC, and the National Blood Service Agency, among others. And the presidency also listed additional legislative proposals such as the Record Officer Registration and Digital Health Bill 2025 and the Federal College of Complementary and Alternative Medicine Bill. And the President has expressed his confidence that the Senate will give the bills careful and judicious consideration in the interest of strengthening the Nigeria health sector. I believe that this is some kind of good news for Nigerians, that we have bills being pushed to the Senate for approval that is going to cater for a lot of issues, challenges that is bedeviling the health sector. Looking at our medical centers, particularly the one for women and the children, which I believe is going to reduce the rate of maternal mortality and also to take care of some of the complications that arise in taking care of children and the pregnant women. So we look forward to the Senate giving assent to this bill for the effectiveness of our health sector, which I believe that is going to go a very long extent to ensure that it fixes a lot of problems and issues within that sector.
Yes, and we trust us are going to give you updates concerning the bills when it is finally approved. Now, away from that to another issue bordering on education. Yes, we mentioned health, and now we move to education. The federal government has unveiled plans to strengthen security in schools located in border and riverine communities under the Safe Schools Transition Plan for the year 2026 to 2030, aimed at creating safer learning environments nationwide. And the strategy recently approved by the government seeks to deepen collaboration among security agencies, state government, and local communities, while expanding psychological support and emergency preparedness for students and teachers. You recall that oftentimes the targets of these bandits are usually schools, before it actually moved to churches, but schools are still affected. And don't forget, the Dapchi school children, the Chibok girls, they were actually in schools, when the bandits actually invaded their classrooms. And ever since then, there have been calls from different quarters that, maybe there should be, security tips in our curriculum, and there should be like a safer school program. In fact, there was a time that the NSCDC actually launched the safer school program, deploying their security agents to different schools, to lecture, to give tips on how to be safe, to be security conscious. And this is actually a good one, as the federal government has actually unveiled another plan, to ensure that our schools are actually safe, especially those schools in the border communities and also in the vulnerable area.
Yeah, this strategy recently approved by the government seeks to deepen collaborations among security agencies, state governments, and local communities while expanding psychosocial support and emergency preparedness for students and teachers. And a senior official involved in the project said the plan will prioritize vulnerable locations, ensuring security training and infrastructure, which border and riverine areas. And the Safe School project was launched in 2014 following the abduction of schoolgirls in Chibok, Borno State, under the initiative of the United Nations Special Envoy for Global Education, Gordon Brown, in partnership with the Nigeria Global Business Coalition for Education and Private Sector stakeholders. So it is very important that students' lives and teachers' lives are very, very secure, even though we see it as the responsibility of the government to protect lives and property. But I love the fact that we are having an initiative that is also safeguarding school, because when there is an attack on school, it's an infringement on the rights of education of every Nigerian child, because students will withdraw from school. Let's look at a lot of attacks on school that happened towards the tail end of last year, where government needs to close down schools on the account of insecurity in those states. So as much as we are welcoming this initiative, I think the government should not still rest their onus, particularly when it comes to this issue of insecurity and how it affects education in the country, because children are vulnerable. So it is important that they are safeguarded from any form of attack or abuses that is coming from headquarters.
Yes, I'm looking further into what we have. I recall that in December 2022, the federal government actually launched the National Plan on Financing Safe Schools for 2023 to 2026. I think, and that is why there's actually a review for that of 2026 to 2030, and they actually proposed investment of about 144.8 billion as at then. And measures included the establishment of the School Protection Squad, the deployment of command and control officers nationwide, the creation of the National Safe School Response Coordination Center to ensure swift response to attacks, which we mentioned earlier. Safe schools coordinators and desk officers were also appointed in all 36 states and 774 local government areas. And despite these initiatives, like we mentioned, that attacks on school remain a concern. And you also recall that in December 2025, the Senate launched an investigation into the Safe Schools project, noting continued vulnerability to raids, mass kidnapping, and deadly attacks. And looking at data from the National Safe School Response and Coordination Center, it shows a sharp rise in school registration under the new program from 11,550 in November 2025 to 14,685 by December, following attacks such as the November 17, 2025 assault on the government girls comprehensive school, secondary school, Maga Kebbi State, where 24 students were abducted and the vice principal was actually killed. And our officials noted that most states are yet to fully implement the federal government safe school project, highlighting the need for continued commitment to protect students and educators nationwide. Yes, they rightly mentioned that the lives of students and teachers especially should be protected, but it's so unfortunate that some institutions, some states out of the 36 states are yet to fully key into this program. Don't forget that in 2022 the federal government actually budgeted 444.8 billion naira. They invested it into this school program. So the question is, why is it that some states are not accessing it? Looking at the fact that there is actually a lot of money invested into this program. So this is actually a call out to state government and yet to key into this or they are yet to access it. I know that there was actually a review. That is why we have the 2026 to 2030 framework. So it is expected that state government that could not access as at then 2023 to 2026 should actually look at measures by which they can maybe they could not fulfill the requirement or something, but they should key into this program because this is actually a good initiative. And if all these people that were actually deployed, 36 desk officers and a lot of people, the command officers, are actually deployed into state, I believe that the rate of attack will actually reduce because people will be sensitized. There's going to be orientation. Students will know what to do when there's actually issues of insecurity.
Yeah, it's a laudable initiative which I believe that no state government should be left behind as far as talking about education, students, teachers, in creating a conducive environment for both learning and teaching. So it is a thing that every state government must key into. However, I want to believe that even if they have access to it, some of them might even channel it to something different from what it originally is supposed to be. So, and we are in a critical time in the country where we don't have to compromise on security and how it affects education. So we need to actually buckle up in that respect. So if there is any money earmarked for that, state government should have access to it. And when they have access to it, it should not be diverted or channeled to something different from the original purpose.
Yes, still talking about insecurity in the country. It's actually 10 days after gunmen abducted worshippers from the Kominwali village in Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State, where no fewer than 166 victims remain in captivity. And this is actually raising anxiety among families, religious bodies, and community leaders. The worshippers, like we mentioned, were kidnapped when bandits stopped 3 churches during worship sessions, and they actually, whisked away 166 worshippers. And reacting to the developments, the Arewa Consultative Forum expressed grave concern over the continued captivity of the worshippers and all security agencies to intensify efforts to secure their immediate release.
Yes, speaking Kaduna yesterday, the National Publicity Secretary of the ACA, that is the Arewa Consultative Forum, Professor Tuko Muhammad Baba, described the abduction as a stark reminder of Nigeria's worsening insecurity and its implications for national stability, and stressed that the rescue of the abducted worshippers must be treated as an urgent priority, noting that the victims were likely enduring severe hardship in the captivity. And according to him, every additional day of the victim remaining in captivity is unacceptable and raises grave humanitarian concern. He therefore warned the government, federal government, and other authorities that they must not underestimate the scale of insecurity challenge confronting the nation, and there should be no compromise in dealing with terrorists and criminal groups. It should be recalled that this 166 worshippers, it's even more than that. We have some that escaped.
Yeah.
So these 166 worshippers were abducted during the worship in 3 different churches, and which has already even raised questions in the mind of Nigerians on how the abduction went, for them to be able to take away 166 worshippers without nobody stopping them, no security agencies, no security personnel that question them. How did they carry them out of town? 166 is not just 2 people that we are talking about. So the whole thing is even raising questions and concern from many Nigerians. However, we still don't have enough. We don't have that solution yet as to this issue of insecurity in the country. To also recall that the United States of America has already labeled Nigeria as a country of particular concern, given to the issue of Christian genocide that was levied against the country. So all of this, we started adding up. So even I thought there was a point that the Kaduna State government denied, but eventually they came out to say that the abduction really happened. So in as much the federal government is also saying that abduction, killing, insecurity is not peculiar to a particular region, but what is being reported on a daily basis is affecting churches, affecting worshippers in different churches. So if we really want to prove the United States of America wrong, that there is no case of Christian genocide or killing in the country, then we need to do more in protecting these particular sets of religion in the country.
Yes, and also reacting, the chairman of the Northern Christian Association of Nigeria, the Reverend Joseph Ayab, has actually urged families of the abducted worshippers to remain calm and hopeful, assuring that efforts were ongoing to secure their release. And also the Senator representing Kaduna Central Senatorial Zone, Lawa Adamu Usman, has visited injured victims receiving treatment at the Rawudi Cold Teaching Hospital, Kaduna, describing the attack as condemnable and unacceptable. Well, in as much as the representative of the CAN have actually called out victims, affected family members, and have actually mentioned that they are actually doing a lot when it comes to securing the release of this one. So we expect that in due time, that this 166 worshippers will be released and will be reunited, because I'm sure that some people, it might be their whole family. Yes, it's 10 days already, and for those people that have actually, that we actually read online, that they recount the story, it's not a good one. It's actually sad. But we're expecting the Kaduna state government, security agents, to collaborate with the federal government and secure the release of 166 worshippers that were abducted 10 days ago. And that's going to be taking our trends for this morning. Let us take a break, and after which Frontline will continue with our newspaper review segment. Just stay with us. break now, looking at the headlines and national dailies for today, January 28, 2020. After interim report reveals military officers targeting President, VP, ministers, and key installations. Arrest ongoing. That's on page 2. Presidency downplays Tinubu's stumble, says Turkey visit on course. For details, you can check page 3. On page 14, show arrest trial. Court admits Omok clip calling Tinubu drug lord. On pages 4 and 5, how court order strike suspension. Taking more headlines. Resetting the record straight on disqualification of Nestor lawyers. The story is on the front page. It continues on the inside page. And beside the nameplate, Discos blame low generation as grid collapse third time. That's on page 23. And lastly, Tinubu proposes 110 Court of Appeal justices. That's on page 6. Those are the headlines on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
Now on the front page of Nigerian News Direct, federal government breaks 10-year jinx with its stage 3 of the Nigerian News Direct. Turkey expand counter-terrorism, military operation with Nigeria. The riders seals 9 bilateral agreement. Tinubu fits and working. Spokesman dismisses earth rumors. As ESPAC calls for structured military partnership to safeguard national security. Details of that on page 13. About the nameplate, please rescue 6 children from Ekiti baby factory. Recover 558 Russell cattle. Details on page 4. CBN shuns 4.9 trillion naira Omobit and auction with no sale. Details on page 4. And lastly, that is the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria, accuses NAFDAC of sabotage, defying presidency over sachet alcohol ban. Details on page 4. The much I have on Nigerian News Direct.
On the front page of the Daily Times newspaper, one party state, APC confirms Nigeria's fears. Boasts of 29 governors, but wants more. For details, you can check the inside page. BK, politicians hijacked FCT worker strike, vowed to resist blackmail. For details, you can check the inside page. On page 2, court strikes out Nnamdi Kanu's motion seeking transfer from Sokoto prison. The story continues on the inside page. And above the nameplate, global mobile usage hits 5.3 trillion as Nigeria, India surge in ranking. And lastly, Nigeria remains China's largest debtor in Africa, owing $5.16 billion. So that is on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper.
Now on the trust. Nigeria, Turkey sign pact on counter-terrorism. The stories on the front page continues on pages 3 and 4 of Daily Trust. Sit at home. Traders protest on a market closure. Details on page 19. Nigeria under Tinubu wars the military regime. Atiku. Details on page 18. Suspected fraudster allegedly kills friend over $1,000. Details on page 25. Strike continues. FCTA workers tell Wiki. Details of that on page 3. Primary school teacher awarded 50 million naira. House, car. Details on page 26. Questions as national grid collapses 3 times in 1 month. Details on page 27. And lastly, on Daily Trust, petrol hits 880 naira per litre as Dangote adjusts price. Details of that on page 6. The much I'll be taking on Daily Trust newspaper.
Now, taking headlines on the front page of Daily Independent newspaper. Article Aregbesola Mark said Tinubu's army was in decades. It has its riders. Governors can't sway elections. Aregbesola shows I was almost assassinated because of loyalty. Article mentioned NGF didn't champion doctrine of necessity, David Mark says. The story is on the front page and it continues on the inside page. Sage Okore criticizes Soludo's closure of Onitsha market for the Tuesday and check 7 of 29. Resumed work of face sanctions. Wike tells striking FCT workers on page 7. Power crisis. Federal government raises 501 billion naira bonds to clear debt burden. Experts flag climate smart farming. Others as key to food security. The story on the front page continues on the inside page. On page 6, Tinubu in stable condition after fall in Turkey, presidency says. Above the nameplate, Tinubu proposes increase of appeal court justices to 110. 6 Senate confirmation of Justice Oyewole for Supreme Court. For details, you can check the front page, and the story continues on the inside page. On page 7, Telco's partner satellite firms for D2C service to boost revenue, and the story is on the front page. It continues on the inside page, and those are the headlines on the front page on the Daily Independent newspaper for this morning.
Now let's check what we have on the front page of The Guardian. ADC hosts opposition show of force. Unity push ahead of 2027. Details of that on page 6. Senate urged to treat food insecurity as national emergency. Details on page 4. 72% of Nigerian businesses tap AI to overhaul workforce. Details on page 22. Court suspend FCTA workers strike as Wike okays 12 billion naira for salaries. Details on page 30. Tinubu pushes defense economic ties in Turkey as aides dismiss health fears. Details on page 6. Still at home, traders protest as Soludo shut down Onitsha market. Details on page 7. More officials quit cabinet as Yusuf launches APC e-registration exercise. Details on page 30. National Grid bounces back after crashing to 39 megawatts. Details on page 3. Tinubu seeks Senate nod for health bills. More judges. Details on page 3. Coup apologize to Nigerians for initial denial. Falana tells military. Details on page 3. And lastly, above the nameplates, setting the record straight on the disqualification of next oil lawyers. We have that story on the front page and continues on page 20. Those were the headlines on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
On the Vanguard, federal government, northern leaders, lawyers to file amnesty for terrorists. Come to this writers. Governors have powers to grant such amnesty if that's coming from the AGF. They can't grant amnesty offences under federal laws. That's coming from lawyers. ACF, CNG, CAN, MBF, Muslim clerics, others disagree. Say amnesty will compound insecurity in region. For details, you can check page 5. On page 32, Ankara, despite fall, Tinubu's in great shape. That's coming from presidency. On page 6, terrorists demand 250 million naira, 20 motorcycles, ransom from Kaguru church victims. Demand 100 million naira for adopted pregnant woman. Nothing more than in Ekiti. On page 39, the sports page. Adepoju Lawal hails Super Eagles' new team spirit. On page 20, federal government raises 501 billion naira from bond market to settle Genco's debt. Bandits killed to abduct over 50 women in Katsina community. On page 10, Osun local government tenure disputes. Adeleke APC trade wets. On page 13, 2027, APC leaders receive move to one offer in automatic ticket. World Bank offers $250 billion procurement window to Nigerian firms. That's on page 19. On page 8, 2027 polls won't be decided by incumbency. Atiku will page 9, custom duty violation. Court orders for feature of private aircraft to federal government. And above the nameplate, resetting the record straight on the disqualification of Nestor's lawyers. The story is on the front page and it continues on page 11.
Okay, target $5 billion trade packed against insurgency, and we have that story on the front page. Okay, it has some riders to it. 9 bilateral agreements signed. Joint Economic and Trade Committee established. The story on the front page continues on page 2. Mutual defension reaffirms APC as truly national party, says Shettima. The riders to that: President okays to work on Akwanga Jos Road, hiring of 1,000 forest guards. Details of that on page 3. Court strikes out applications seeking transfer of Kanu from Sokoto prisons. Details on page 4. 12 outstanding teachers get 355 million naira cash award. The story on the front page continues on page 3. World Bank gives condition for states to access loans. Details on page 5. Task: banks can't debit account without owner's consent. Details of that on page 6. Judge returns Malami's interim for future case file to CJ. Details on page 27. And lastly, Miyetti Allah leader arrested over banditry in Kwara. Details on page 6. And above the nameplate, real. Setting the record straight on the disqualification of Next Oil lawyers. The story on the front page continues on page 4. The much I have on the Nation newspaper.
On the front page of the blueprint, with 501 billion naira budget on fully subscribed, federal government closes first tranche of 4 trillion naira issuance program. Its decisive reset of electricity markets. Vengeance says confidence restored will unlock investment additional. The story is on the front page, continues on page 8 of the blueprint newspaper. APC destination for believers in United Nigeria. Shettima says Tinubu Shettima ticket best for 2027. That's from Sule. The details is on the front page and it continues on page 8. 2027, Nigerians ready. ADC in competition, not cooperation. Bolaji Abdullahi. Mark forth the loyalists on doctrine of necessity. Why I wrote the book, ex-minister. You can check the front page for details, and the story continues on page 8. PFCC arraigns ex-national coordinator NEDC over 2.2 billion naira fraud. For the details, you can check page 6. On page 7, we are targeting $5 billion trade volume with 9. On page 8, police snap 5 baby factory operators, 70 rustlers recovers 558 cattle in Ekiti. Taking more headlines, Tinubu proposes 110 application justices virtual hearings. For details, you can check the inside page. Federal government backs customs reforms. Community services border vigilance. For details, you can check the inside page. On the sports page, Superside rescues 84-year-old man from well. For the details,
Tinubu seeks 110 justices for appeal. Want Oyewale confirmed as Justice of the Supreme Court. Details on page 3. Nigeria's new economic model under Tinubu to drive higher GDP figure, IMP high. Details on page 3. Industrial court orders FCT workers to government. Details on page 13. Why we are offering sustainable livelihoods to illicit cannabis growers, NDLEA. Details on page 7. Tinubu stumbles in Turkey. No cause for alarm presidency. The riders explained he stepped on a metal on the floor, lost his balance briefly as he talks with President Erdogan. Details of that on page 2. Protest rocks Onitsha over main market shutdown. Soludo deploys security operative to enforce order. Anambra lawmaker, details of that on page 2. Above the name plate, by election, Fubara refutes allegation of supporting ADC and liquidity, stabilize yields. Details on page 5.
More headlines on the front page of our national dailies for today. I'll be looking at the new Telegraph news. It's now economic emergency. It comes to these riders. Demands independent forensic audit to probe frequent grade collapse if fully restored. Power supply return to normal. NIS Expo 6. For details, you can check page 3 and 4. 2027 mission to rescue Nigeria collective 1. Mark says that's on page was during reception in Turkey. That's on page 2. On page 8, Nigeria based supplier on page 2, NHRC, we received over 3.6. There's a study that says pop rises as scientists discover how to regrow cartilage. That's on page 30. Tinubu asks Senate to amend Federal High Court Act. Raise justice by election. Fubara refutes allegation of supporting ADC candidate. For details, you can check page 2 and now above the nameplate. PMS pump price increase. For details, you can check page 8. And lastly, resetting the record straight on the disqualification of Nestor's lawyers. The story is on the front page and it continues on the inside page. And those are the headlines on the front page of the New Telegraph newspaper.
Now, business day. Nigeria settles 501 billion naira power debt as Tinubu tackles decade-old crisis. That's the rider says it is a game changer and bets. Signing equals debt warrant. Gencos. We have the story on the front page. Continues on page 31 of business day. Inventory by Nigeria bonds in last gasp rush for higher yields. Details on page 4. Recapitalization. Insurers shed portfolios to meet requirements. The story on the front page continues on page 4. And we have the market monitor also right on the front page of the business day newspaper. Those are details on the front page of the business day newspaper.
Now let's quickly take some stories on the front page of the Punch Sport Extra for this morning. Man City versus Ghana. Osimhen faces tough test as Nigerian stars seek UCL survival. For details, you can check the inside page. Egypt dropped Nigeria out of African and tourney. That's on page 2. Ronaldo ahead Messi by far. Di Maria says Porto battle Besiktas for Murphy Still on page 6, Chelsea exit. That's on page 4. Double out for 10 weeks. That's also on page 4. On page 3, injury threatens Williams' World Cup dreams. And on page 8, Conte Costa on page 6. Atlanta lower Lukman Price. Still on page 6, Fargo replaces Rosimi at PZN for record fee. And lastly on page 7, NFF Eagles control Ndidi over Father's Day. And those are the headlines on the front page of the Sport Extra for this morning. And that's what you'll be taking on the front page of our national daily for the day, January 28, 2026. Join us again for another segment tomorrow by God's grace. Let's take a break, and after which